And we're recording. We're going to start chapter 12 today and finish chapter 12 today. So, what I'd like to do is on Thursday go over the exam. Okay? Is everybody cool with that?
Yeah, is there will there be a class too for Soch on Thursday?
Yes, because we only did half of the lecture, but this lecture is so much shorter than social.
Okay, good.
All right, let me just plop that puppy there. Go to come on. All right, all right. And I do this. I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna go something about like that. Something about like that. So when we talk about different disorders and such, we always look for different demographic factors or differences among these disorders, like whether it be an anxiety disorder or a behavior disorder or a cognitive or a mood, whatever the things are. And we compare different ages and sexes and ethnicities. When you think of sexual disorders, where do you think, before we begin, where do you think a lot of these, what are some demographic differences before we start? What would you guess?
Probably like like maybe lower income to higher income. Maybe there's some
Okay. So you
like
think,
educational difference there, maybe. And then
oh, okay. Okay, so let's go to the income. Let's go to socioeconomic status. Do you think you'd
okay.
see more disorders in the lower or the higher?
I would say in the lower just because they'd probably have like less knowledge of those disorders.
Okay, so that's related to education. What about sex?
I don't know, maybe it'd be even because they're just people and things happen to people.
Okay. What about age? Do you think there's an age range where there's a higher prevalence?
Maybe younger people. I
Okay.
don't know, I'm just guessing. Is there a wrong answer to this?
Yeah, there are right and wrong answers. So,
Okay.
but let's go through it. I was just curious. Chloe, do you have any impressions? Do you have any?
No, I was just kind of thinking along the same boat
Okay.
about that.
Okay. So, less is known about sexual deviations, abuse, and dysfunctions than other topics. Why? Because fewer people research it. The topic of sex is taboo, it's divisive, it's controversial, and our political climate. Um, when it comes to politics, um, religion is mm, popularized. Actually, religion would be politicized, and so when it comes to religion and sexual deviancies, um, religious uh, religious people hold stronger, more um, I don't even know what to call it. Stronger opinions about it. Let's just say for now. Okay. So sociocultural influences on sexual practices and standards. Right. Some aspects of sexuality are universal, and others are quite variable. And sexual attitudes vary greatly across cultures and across time. So we're going to see a lot of differences between cultures, and we're going to see a lot of differences within cultures that have changed over time as far as what is normal and what is not. So some cases on upcoming slides exemplify the variety of sexual standards. So going back, we always start with the history of what has been done, what has where they focused their attention, and of course it's going to be on men, right? So in the 1750s, they came up with the degeneracy theory, and that they thought at the time that semen loss caused men to lose masculine characteristics. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that every time a man ejaculated, it would be a loss of semen. So you'd want to maintain that as much as possible. So they came up again in the 1830s now, the abstinence theory, where they thought that masturbation threatened public health and caused even insanity. Ritualized homosexuality. It's practiced in some societies in Melanesia. These are male initiation rituals where young males exchange semen with each other, and the ingested semen they thought was protective against female pollution. Up to 1970, homosexuality was regarded widely as a sickness. Current evidence shows that homosexuality is compatible with psychological normality, and homosexuality is no longer listed as a disorder in the DSM. But think about that. Up to the 70s, it was. Paraphilic disorders. These are recurrent, intense, sexually arousing fantasies, sexual urges, or behaviors that generally involve abnormal targets of sexual attraction, or unusual courtship behaviors, or the desire for pain and suffering of oneself, or the pain and suffering of others. So, a paraphilia on its own are just unusual sexual interests. They don't need to necessarily cause harm either to the person who has one or others. But the disorder now, same, okay? But now it is causing harm to themselves or others. So a paraphilia, for example, like a foot fetish, right? Fetishism. And who cares? It's not causing anybody harm unless it is causing the individual harm. Unless they are having trouble dealing with it, now you'd call it a paraphilic disorder. When it becomes maladaptive, when it gets in the way of everyday living, as in a healthy way. So some common paraphilias: fetishism. That's where you just simply have unusual targets of attraction. Feet is a big one. Let's see, what's another one? What's another one? Um, some people like extreme weight. Some people like extreme thinness. Um, um, what's another common fetish? Boy, you think I would know this. Would what would a we know feet. Feet's a big one. What do you think, Chloe?
Like, what about those people like that, like dress up when they do it?
That's called transvestic fetishism.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
that shows you how much I know about
No,
it.
no, you're right. But it is a fetish, though. It is a fetish. I
Yeah,
mean, you could have a fetish for anything. It could
yeah.
be running water. Seriously, if it creates. I'm dead serious. If it creates sexual arousal, then that's a fetish, a sexual fetish. But
Some people go mad.
a fetish itself is not innately sexual. Like, for example, you can say without being incorrect that someone has a football fetish, and that means that they just really like football. It doesn't mean that it's sexual. Fetishism isn't sexual on its own, but a sexual fetish is sexual, if that makes sense. If it causes sexual arousal, it's a sexual fetish. But a fetish on
Mhm.
its own is just an, an above average or an above normal level of liking for something.
I have okay. So if someone is like into like getting degraded, is that like, oh, is that not harmful? But they like it, but like it's
Okay, so that would be masochism. Is that what you're referring to? Sexual masochism?
I don't know. I saw it on a show once, so I just
Um, yeah, that's a form of masochism where you get sexual arousal from being having psychological or physical pain inflicted.
okay.
Yeah. Sadism is where you are inflicting it. So,
Oh, okay.
question? I don't know if I answered your question. Did you have a question? What was your question?
Yeah, it was kind of a question. I didn't know if it would be like a disorder or not, just because they. But I guess I
No,
see how.
no,
But
it's
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 not.
not. Right. You
Oh,
right. It's not unless it's causing them harm. As in
okay.
they don't like it.
So they like the pain, so that's
Yeah.
not harmful. Okay. Okay.
Correct. Yep. Pedophilia, we know what that is.
Mhm.
Right. So the sexual attraction to prepubescent individuals. Voyeurism, what's that? Voyeurism is peeping toms.
Uh,
Oh, I would never guess that. Oh, I was guessing. I don't know. No, nah. No.
Exhibitionism, what's that? What does it sound
Maybe
like?
exploring.
Hmm?
No. Like to explore something.
It's
Exhibit.
flashes.
Maybe.
They like to do
Oh.
things in public, in front of
mm,
people.
No.
Frauderism, that's a tough one. That's where you get sexual arousal by rubbing yourself onto an unsuspecting person. Like frauderism, a good example would be a person who's on a subway or a mode of transportation, a public transportation, and they're getting sexual arousal by rubbing up against the person next to them. That's frauderism. Sexual sadism is where you derive sexual pleasure from inflicting pain, sexual masochism by receiving it. So the causal factors for paraphilias, almost all paraphilias are, I don't want to say owned, or are seen in men. Almost all of them. Overwhelmingly, the majority are men. These usually begin at puberty. They're associated with strong sex drives. They have multiple of them. It's not just one. And they have a dependence on the visual sexual imagery, meaning they have their their they become obsessed with being able to see it, whether it be in pornographic material or seeing it live, that kind of thing. So when it comes to treatment of paraphilias, other than sex offenders, most people with paraphilias do not seek treatment. That's true. They don't. Gender dysphoria, formerly known as gender identity disorder, formally. The reason why is because people began to go, wait a minute, it's not a disorder though. We're just unhappy with it. So let's call it something else. Gender dysphoria. It's a discomfort with the assigned gender or sex relevant physical characteristics. There is evidence of childhood diagnosis, and there's also the adolescent adulthood diagnosis. So when it comes to boys with gender dysphoria typically enjoy stereotypical girl activities, such as what? What are some stereotypical girl activities as children?
playing with dolls.
Dolls, yep, right? And the adult outcome commonly is homosexuality. With girls, they prefer traditional boys' clothing, short hair. But when they are adults, the outcome becomes less clear. It may lead to homosexuality, but only some small studies done, and it doesn't necessarily mean that. So we have more fluidity in all things when it comes to women or the females. So gender dysphoria and in adulthood. We have transsexuals, where these are people with gender dysphoria who want to change their sex, their physical sex. Homosexual transsexuals, these are feminine men attracted to men who feel like a woman trapped in a man's body. Autogynephilic transsexuals, this is a man's sexual arousal at just the thought of being a woman. So when it comes to the transition from male to female or female to male, it's always going to start with some sort of therapy, right? But the efforts using psychotherapy to reverse it, those are not effective at all. And in fact, they're quite harmful. But there is always going to be some sort of therapy to prepare the individual for this change, because once you go that route, there's no going back. Okay. I mean, there is, but not like if a man has his penis removed surgically, putting a new penis on is going to be nearly impossible because you'd have to have someone donating a penis to put on you, essentially. Okay. Anyway, so it starts with therapy to prepare the individual. Then they tell the individual, okay, go live in a often go live in a community that is um, accepting of uh, transgenderism, transsexuality, homosexuality, bisexuality, that is progressive, we'll say, and live in that community as an individual of the opposite sex that you want to be. While doing that, they undergo hormone treatments, testosterone for women, or I should say, forgive me, testosterone for trans men and estrogen for trans women. Trans meaning transitioning to. So they do that for a couple of years, see how they like it, see how it's going, see if they still want to go through with it. And if they do, they finally do the surgical sex reassignment. And it's typically effective in the sense that people are relatively pleased with the outcome. Penis gets reconstructed to a vagina. The vagina and the clitoris gets reconstructed to a complete hysterectomy, right? All that female plumbing is removed. And the labia majora get turned into a scrotum, fused to a scrotum, and the clitoris is elongated through one means or another to become essentially a penis. Now, sexual abuse, right? Such as pedophilia, incest, and rape. Childhood sexual abuse. The prevalence in the United States, somewhere between 4 to 6%. Worldwide, somewhere around 1.6, 1 point something percent worldwide. So those who experience childhood sexual abuse are at higher risk for fear, anxiety, and substance abuse disorders, as well as suicidal behaviors. People will use children's testimony and recovered memories of sexual abuse. Pedophilic disorder. The adult has recurrent, intense sexual urges or fantasies about sexual activity with prepubescent children or a child. Acting on the urges is not a requirement for a diagnosis if the urges cause a person distress. Okay, so with all paraphilias, again, it has to cause the individual and or the others distress. So there doesn't have to be, for example, and this is a fair example, okay? You have a priest, right? Now, no, not all priests are pedophiles, of course, but it's been known for some time that some priests are homosexual. They don't act on it, okay? So by definition, they have no problem. But if it really gets in the way of their religion, if it really bothers them deep down inside, a priest may want to go see. And the reason why I bring up priests, by the way, is because some religions are very restrictive about sexuality and sexual expression, sexual feelings, sexual orientation, like Christianity. So here's a priest who knows that he's gay. And if he accepts that and moves on and says, you know what, Jesus likes me the way I am and whatever, everything's fine, right? Everything's just fine, okay? Then there's no problem. But if it does cause internal despair, internal anguish, depression, anxiety, well, then it is a problem. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now, is the reason why like pedophilias are attracted to children is because everybody's attracted to the younger looking like self as like older people, and is that like sorry, is that why like they like do that? I don't know.
Okay, so I really, really appreciate where you're going with this. Um, it would be It would have to be an exaggeration of that, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, are they like they just like have an exaggerated like feeling for that? I don't
Yes,
know.
yes. And I want to emphasize, I want to really like point this out though. Just because it's an exaggeration of an evolutionary um, um, predisposition doesn't make it not abnormal. For example, some females will kill their young um, of all species. After delivering them, they will kill them. Now, I'm not going to, it's a long story explaining why this is, but I'll make it really quick. And that is, for example, I'll use this as an example. Female, female mammals, when they deliver their young, the placenta and the amniotic fluid, they will ingest it. Okay. They will eat it, drink it, because it provides pain relief. Okay. Um, now, it is a natural instinct for the female to lick this stuff off of the infant. Okay. And that serves two purposes. One, it removes the stuff off the infant, which allows it to dry quicker and maintain its body heat. It cleans it. It cleans the nasal passages. It gets the lungs moving. It actually helps the infant survive. But at the same time, the caregiver, the mother, the female, is also getting pain relief. That's supporting it. That's reinforcing it, right? So we've evolved to have that. But an extreme version of that, the mother, for example, rats and mice and some rodents, the parents, the mother, will eat the child. It doesn't have a switch that says turn off now. So it's an abnormality of something that was evolutionarily based. You see? So it's an exaggeration, it's an extreme version of it that didn't help the species. So I want to be clear that when I say it's an exaggerated version of something normal, and that is for males to seek youth and attractiveness, to go beyond that, where the switch should have been turned on, to not go toward prepubescent, because there's no benefit to it. It doesn't help the species survive. You're not going to reproduce with that individual. So there's a switch that turns it off at that point. Okay. So I want to be clear, and this is where I'm finally going to end this. It's abnormal. It is clearly wrong. So when I say it's an exaggeration, I'm not giving an excuse. None.
That was a good example.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, thank you. Oh, good. Thanks. I appreciate that. All right. So Chloe, being the smart person that Chloe is, said, okay, is this kind of related to why, how males are? Yes, that's exactly right. Meaning it is almost all male, as in all the people who are committing these crimes, these acts are male, and 2/3 of the victims are female. So they're more likely to engage in self-justifying cognitive distortions. These males often appear shy and introverted. They often idealize aspects of childhood, and they're often abused themselves as children. Now, do not confuse that with sexual abuse leads to sexual abuse. That's not what that means. It means those who were sexually abused uh, in regards to pedophilia often were abused themselves. So if there are 5 pedophiles in a town of, let's say, 500 people, oh, we'll keep it. Yeah, I know I got to do that. 500 people in a town, and there are 5 people who have pedophilia or, do whatever. Of those 5, maybe 3 or 4 themselves were victims of pedophilia. But within the town itself, there might be 30 people who were victims of pedophilia. So it's a very small percentage of those who themselves were victims become the ones who do this later. It's just saying of the ones who do this, they were a part of that larger group. Does this make sense?
Mhm.
So being sexually abused as a child does not predict. It is not correlated with you not you, but someone else doing it. But being someone who does it, it is correlated with having been abused in the past. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, good. All right, moving on. Incest, culturally prohibited sexual relations between family members. Incest taboo is virtually universal, meaning no. Okay. Throughout the world. No, we don't do that. Okay. The prevalence, however, is difficult to estimate. And what do you think are what is the most common type of incest between what two family members? Anybody want to guess?
Cousin.
Nope. Good guess though. Good guess.
Step brother and sister.
Nope.
What?
Well, stepbrother
Um.
isn't really family though.
Twins?
It's brother and sister.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. And the second most common is father-daughter. And then the least
That was
common,
yeah.
and the least common is mother-son.
Mm.
Rape. Sexual activity involving actual or threatened forcible coercion of one person by another. Statutory rape is sexual activity with a person under the age of consent. Sexual assault refers to other forms of unwanted sexual contact. Could be, saying, hey, I want to, I'm going to do this to you. That's sexual assault. Someone grabbing your butt cheek. That's sexual assault. That's not rape. Okay. What are the ages that we see most of it happening when it comes to sexual assault? 12 to 17, the highest, then 18-34, then 35 to 64, and then 65 still happens. But highest 12 to 17. And these are looking for women, females. The prevalence of rape, the precise definition varies. Information gathering varies. Risk is highest in women under the age of 34, and you should know that. And you should also know that rapists often know the victim. Now, this is an open question. There is no right or wrong. But what is your opinion? Is rape motivated by sex, like as in the act, or is it motivated by aggression?
I think aggression. Because they I don't know, maybe they act out on their anger, but then it also leads to sex too. They want to have sex, but they're so angry and they rape someone. I don't know. Swings both ways for me.
Yeah. Tirza, what do you think?
I kind of agree with that. I feel like it's more like because they can't really. I don't know. I can't speak for, I don't know like what the motive is, but maybe like there's control issues where they don't have control and they don't have that someone that they can interact with properly to like not rape.
Yeah.
I think it might be aggression that leads to sex.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. I'll start with Chloe because Chloe went first. Chloe, when they asked rapists, what were you motivated by? What do you think rapists said? Sex or aggression?
I'm kind of thinking maybe sex.
Tirza, what do you think?
I agree. Probably. Yeah, I would agree just because. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Now, when they ask, when researchers, when scientists are asked, do you think that they say predominantly, Chloe, that it is sex or aggression that motivates rapists?
I'm thinking scientists think it's aggression.
And Tirza?
Yeah, aggression.
You're both right about both things. So research shows that it's predominantly motivated by aggression. But when you ask the rapists, they say, no, I just wanted sex.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very good. Good job, guys. Okay, so what are some potential consequences of rape? Well, there could be physical trauma, psychological trauma, post traumatic stress disorder. Um, Women only commit a small fraction of rapes. Most rapes are committed by men. 60% of all rapists are under the age of, I think, 25 years of age, something like that. Don't worry about it. All right. Treatment and recidivism of sex offenders, meaning they do it again. Did you know that sex offenders with deviant sexual preferences have high rates of recidivism, and recidivism rates for rape and sexually deviant behaviors decrease with age? So, sex offenders therapy goals to modify the patterns of sexual arousal, to modify the cognitions, the thinking, the thoughts, and the social skills to allow more appropriate sexual interactions with adult partners, to change the habits and the behavior that increase the chance of reoffending, and to reduce sex drive. Psychological therapy. So, those would be more behavioral therapies. Psychological therapies, aversion therapy, right? Have them associate something negative with it, whether it be a shock, whether it be nausea, whether it be something that they don't want, a feeling that a person doesn't want. Um, Covert sensitization, um, meaning they they are being messed with without being aware of it. Cognitive restructuring, changing the way they look at things, think about things, and then lastly, social skills training. There's also biological and surgical methods, just gonadectomies, removal of the testes, um, hormone therapy, and cognitive behavioral combination. Um, Estrogen lowers sex drive. Um, 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 Testosterone blockers, um, that kind of thing. Sexual dysfunctions, the impairment in desire for sexual gratification and or the ability to achieve it. This affects both hetero and homosexual couples, and there are many possible causes. So we know that there are four human sex response phases, right? In human sexuality, you learned that it was the excitement, the plateau, the orgasmic, and then the resolution. It's it's basically the same thing, but they just moved the desire and to they renamed excitement desire and the plateau the excitement, but it means the same thing. So the excitement really to desire. The excitement is like, ooh, I'm excited. I'm starting to get like cognitively and physiologically aroused. Now you have the excitement, which is also known as the plateau phase, and that now you're engaging in some sort of sex act. Um, a number of things, right? Some sort of self stimulation or interaction with another person, something like that. Then you have the orgasmic phase, which is what it sounds like. And then you have the return to baseline, which is the resolution phase. So, sexual dysfunctions in men, hypoactive sexual desire disorder, hypo, O meaning under, little or no sex drive or interest. There's erectile disorders, the inability to achieve or maintain erections, the early ejaculation disorder, the persistent and recurrent orgasm and ejaculation with little sexual stimulation. And then there's the delayed ejaculation disorder, the inability to ejaculate during intercourse. Sexual dysfunctions in women, the female sexual interest or arousal disorder. I don't know why it's not just called hypoactive, but low sexual desire and low sexual arousal. The genital pelvic pain or penetration disorder, genital pain during intercourse with muscle tension and fear and anxiety related to genital pain or penetrative sexual activity. And then lastly, so it's physical pain. So no interest, physical pain, or the female orgasmic disorder. Persistent or recurrent delay in or absence of orgasm following normal sexual excitement phase. So some unresolved issues. How harmful is childhood sexual abuse? Some researchers have questioned the conventional belief that it is very harmful because we know children are resilient. And findings, methodology, and implications are also, again, controversial. All right, I'm going to stop recording. Wait, before I do, does anybody have any questions regarding the topic?